Hello everybody. So today some of the things I'm going to be talking about are what I mean by technical PPC. It sounds quite scary, but I'm going to try and break it down and make it super accessible and give everybody an insight into what it is I actually do and about me. And then some talks about understanding business data and what business data I use on a day-to-day. And then I've got a quite deep dive into one of the strategies that we regularly use when it comes to direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands, which is our heroes and villains structure. And then I've got like a playbook on other strategies that we regularly use. So a little bit about me. I've been in paid for 4.5 years. Prior to that, I worked in-house as like a general marketing assistant, which was pretty fun. My role at Vivant is a senior data consultant, which means I just answer loads of Excel questions all day, which is kind of boring. But yeah, I was going to put more memes in the deck, but I got told off. I was allowed one, so here it is. What is technical PPC? So from my standpoint, it's about using business data to understand how we can inform Google Ads strategies, because as more and more of the levers that we were pulling become black box, we need to think of innovative ways of informing the algorithms on how they can sell our products better. So the biggest change for this was when we went from standard shopping to smart shopping. I don't know how many people in the room ever experienced that transition, but it was quite a big one. We lost access to brand versus non-brand, we lost insights, and then when we transitioned to PMax, we lost basically all reporting, so we didn't really have a clue what was going on. So what do you need to do what I'm going to talk about? You need a curious mind, Google Sheets, and a data pipeline. Like 2 tools, and that's pretty much all you need. The data pipeline that I use is Supermetrics. It's quite good, quite easy to use, but there are other ones available. Funnel is pretty good. So one of the first things that we kind of need to do when we look at what kind of strategy that we're going to deploy is kind of establish what the business goals are. Are we looking to grow revenue? Are we looking to acquire new customers? Are we looking at growing social media followings, things like that? And then, because I work primarily with D2C brands, we kind of then look at the products. So from a PMax standpoint, understanding how Google is advertising our products and making sure that we're not wasting any spend or anything like that. And from there, we kind of move on to deciding about a strategy. So some of the business metrics we look at are customer lifetime value, customer acquisition cost, cost of sale, or media efficiency ratio, depending on which way you're looking at it. And then some brands care about first order profitability, so making sure that when we acquire our first customer, we're not losing money to do it, which is quite important. And then some of the more product-focused metrics that we like to look at are products that are frequently purchased first, that lead to the highest lifetime customer value, the products that purchased first, what's the second most purchased product, which products lead to the highest lifetime customer value. Some of these will be the same, but not all of them will be. So it's good to take a moment to kind of, if you have access to your client's backend, like a Shopify store, just download all the data and take a look through it and try and understand how that's going on. Then I've got a matrix here, which is quite simple. The deck will go around afterwards, but if you're looking to increase profitability and your client doesn't have a fixed margin, the best thing to do is bucket your campaign, your products by margin, and then advertise them at different ROASes so that you can make sure that you're advertising profitably. If you're looking to reduce spend, the heroes and villains structure I'm going to go into. If your client has a lot of stock that isn't selling and they want to push it, then there's high priority, low priority custom labels that you can assign. New customer acquisition volume, so removing products that don't have a good customer acquisition cost and pushing the ones that do really, really hard. And then if a client has a different priority, you can also overlay that on top of this. A lot of this kind of relies between the back and forth between you and the client to understand what it is they want to achieve and what it is that you can achieve. And if you're looking to increase lifetime customer value, just having the understanding of the product journey that people will go through with your loyal customers, making sure that you're not undervaluing a certain product and not overvaluing others. So just as an example for the strategy, I've got heroes and villains. So we're going to use historic product data to segment our products on Google Ads to try and get them to advertise efficiently. One thing to remember is that previous success does not guarantee future success. So we do make a lot of assumptions generally with this, that if a product is performing, it will continue to perform. One of the ways that we counter that is the look back window. So we'll look at the last 120 days worth of data. So products are not particularly volatile. If one product sells really, really well one day, it doesn't jump between categories too much. Or if a product just doesn't sell for a week, it doesn't become a villain, essentially. So what is a hero? The hero is generally the top 10% of products. So products by sales volume or revenue. The 80-20 rule is really, really prevalent here, but we kind of segment it to the top 10% because in one of the graphs I'll show you, in a little while you'll see how much spend and revenue comes from such a small portion of products. Villains is the biggest thing that we noticed after doing this is that Google is really inefficient at spending on certain products. So when I was auditing an account last year, they spent $120,000 in 120 days, but $35,000 of that were products that didn't convert, which is a really easy thing to talk to clients about, because if you're trying to save them money, they'll be much more receptive to these sorts of discussions. And then zombies is quite an old thing, but we kind of incorporate it here. It's products that Google hasn't spent any money advertising. So either 0 or low impressions and no clicks, because Google just hasn't given these products enough time to look at what they're doing. And like I said, I do all of this in a Google Sheet. So I've got supermetrics extracting my impressions, clicks, costs, conversion value, and conversion volume, and then calculating the ROAS. And then from there, I'm using the rank function in Excel to give everything a rank from 1 to however many products they have, because that way, as they add products, I don't have to go in and update loads of stuff. I'm quite lazy in that regard. If I can avoid doing stuff over and over again, I will. And then, as you can see, just in the top 20 products, we've got a wide selection of heroes, zombies, sidekicks, and villains. So we've got one product that's basically just Google spends loads of money advertising, but to really poor success. And when we convert this into a matrix, this is how it looks. So for this client on villains, we spent just over £3,000 for £360 of revenue. And that's a really easy conversation to go, this is why we need the strategy. When we're deciding on targets, the best thing to do is use weighted averages. So I will weight my average based on the spend and product volume, so that I know that I'm not setting a ROAS target too high or too low. And then if my target's like 3, I'll divide all of the campaigns into a ROAS so that it averages out to a 3, and then I can push my heroes really hard and stop spending on my villains. Is there any questions on that? No? So one of the other things I did with a gentleman who's in the room is we was working on a client that was selling guitars, and as we transitioned over to smart shopping, we found that certain products would just stop selling, but other products would continue to push really hard, but they had really variable margins on their products. So we did some analysis and we found that when Google's just left its own devices, it doesn't know about margins, so it'll just push products as it sees fit. But we had a large volume of products that were like over 50% margin that were getting no spend. So the other line is the volume of products, and the proportion of spend that's going towards the lower end is quite high. This was really beneficial for us because it allowed us to move to a margin-based strategy and then increase not only ROAS but profitability, which then allowed us to increase spend volumes through Google. So again, matrixing it, just margin buckets, spend, profit after ad spend, revenue, ROAS, and profitability, just helps you explain how much you're actually spending on each of these groups. Client priority. So we had a client who sells backpacks, and they had one particular style that they were massively overstocked on. And as we were pushing more and more budget into PMax, it was just not getting any money behind it. So we put the product into different buckets based on custom labels. Custom labels are your literal best friend in this. You can do everything by custom labels. And we managed to increase the number of impressions on high priority products by 100%. We went from 6 million impressions in 120 days to 12 million, just by implementing this change. And as you can see, after we did the restructure, we saw a massive spike in the volume of high priority product impression volumes. The thing that this doesn't correlate to though is high priority product sales. So we drove a lot more impressions and a lot more click-throughs to the products, but not necessarily more sales. New customer acquisition. So for this, you'll need access to the backend of Shopify Magento. And what we did was we pulled the product level reports out of that platform and then pulled our spend on Google to that platform. And then just looked at how much we were spending on each of the products which had the best volume new customer acquisitions, segmented them by good, medium, low, and just pushed all of the products with the best new customer acquisition cost, just to try and get Google to prioritize those products over anything else. It's quite a common theme. Google is not very good at prioritizing your products, so you need to have some sort of control over it. The other thing that is really important is external factors. So if your client is selling weather-dependent gear, don't just care about what season it is, like spring 2024. If it's nobody cares about umbrellas unless it's raining. Nobody cares about sunglasses unless it's sunny. So making sure that you use like a Google Ads weather script with an API that pulls out that data into a sheet and then pushes those products when they're available will really help you increase the sale volume of those products, because you don't want to be advertising them when the intent is incredibly low. Over the last 2 years, I've done the same piece of analysis enough times that I'm now calling it research. Essentially, loads of my clients really struggled to understand and justify meta spend. So we were really fortunate in the fact that they stopped spending on meta, which allowed me to go, okay, if I look at how much I'm spending on meta, and then look at how much Google brand search volume you have, I can see that the correlation is, as you decrease spend, the amount of people that search for your product on Google declines. The correlation works out to be 0.88. So it's an incredibly strong correlation. And then I had another client, this one here, where the overall brand search volume was quite unstable, but we can see that when they're spending on Meta, there is a clear spike. It's an incredibly quick spike. With programmatic and other things like that, there can be 6 to 8 week delays in these spikes, whereas with Meta, it's basically an instant. So it's really, really good to look at outside influences that could have an effect on your overall Google Ads. If you have a really bad week, and the client comes to go, why is it bad? What have they done or not done that they did in the past that could be an effect? Another example of this is I had a client where in the US, our Google Ads brand search volume doubled overnight. And I was like, okay, what happened? I spent a whole day looking into the account, like, what did I change? What mistake have I made? And then I had a meeting with them and I was like, oh yeah, it was on Vogue. I'm like, yeah, thanks for not telling me that. I could have really capitalized on that, but that is so I've left some time again for any questions, if anybody has any.